tell you what, I had not realized how crazy my thrifting had gotten until I had to start putting together the piles for this video. It's a lot. Hello everyone, thank you for clicking on this video. I am moving in the next couple months and I'm moving somewhere where I'm not going to be able to take all my books with me. So I'm only going to be able to bring select few books with me. So I thought that now would be a good time to start kind of making collection videos while I have my books with me. You know, making a little bit of a capsule about what books I have in the middle of 2023. One of the biggest collections within my book collection is my classics collection, and it has exploded in the last year, even in the last half year. I've recently moved to a house where there is a thrift store, 3 thrift stores right around the corner, like walking distance, and that happened to correlate with me getting into classics, and the books in these thrift stores are $3 a pop, and there are always classics in the bookstore. So my collection has just expanded. So I thought what I would do today is give you a little bit of a tour of my classics. People who aren't new will know that my books at the moment are stored in a garage. We're in a garage at the moment. So there are a couple bookshelves all around. I don't really have an aesthetically pleasing place where I can kind of, you know, show you my shelves and how they look. So what I've done is I brought all my classics down onto this mat with me, and I'm just literally going to show you them so that you can see what classics I have. I know I love watching these kind of videos. I love being nosy. I know some of you do as well, just kind of seeing what other people have, you know, what kind of things might be popping up in the future. I'm not going to talk about every single one. It's literally going to be, I'm going to show it to you and probably put it down straight away, because otherwise this will be like a 2-hour video. A note, I haven't included my kind of children's literature classics. I would like to make a separate video about them, because I feel like I have more thoughts to say about that topic of like children's literature and classics for children and how important they are and why I like them so much. So I feel like that's a separate topic, so I've left them out of this video for today. So what I have done is I have 1, 2, 3, 4, I have like 10 piles of books around me. I've just kind of split all of my classics into either series or authors or just general vibes or editions, so that I can kind of show you in a manner that makes sense. So I'm just gonna literally hop straight into it. So what I'll do is I'll start out with the pile that's right in front of me. So these are my, what are these called? These are my modern classics. Most of them are blue. One of them is a white modern classic, which I think is an older format. I think the older editions used to have white. So I'm literally going to quickly go through them and show you them. So the first one I have is Down and Out in Paris and London by George Orwell. My granddad sent me this one. Then I have The Little Prince by Anton. I said I was going to figure out how to say his last name the last time I talked about this book, but it has not happened yet. Anton Saint-Exupéry. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy by John le Carre. And finally The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. So I only have 4 of the modern classics, but I love the way they look on the shelves together. It's a big, I think that's part of my problem with how many classics I have. I like to collect editions because I love the way that they look on the shelf. Then I have a couple miscellaneous Jules Verne books. So I have 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea in the Collins Classics. I really love the feel of this one. And then I also have A Journey to the Center of the Earth, which is, I don't know what these editions are, but by Wilco Books. These are the nice cheap ones that pop up in Dymocks. I haven't read any Jules Verne yet, but he is up on my list of what I want to read. I do have another Collins classic, which is actually of one of my favorite books, and that is The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. This came to me very highly recommended by my fiance, and I just sat down to read it, and before I'd stood up again, I'd finished it. Other miscellaneous classic books that I have by women authors are To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I read this in high school and it remains one of my favorite books. And also Middlemarch by George Eliot. You guys would have recently seen this one in my longest books on my TBR video. That one is unread. I have a few miscellaneous classics by male authors, so I put them in a different pile. This one you also would have seen in my longest books TBR video, and it is volume 1 of the complete novels and stories of Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. This is like a brick of a book. It's absolutely crammed full of words, there's barely any margins, so that will keep me going for a long time when I do end up reading it. Then I have 1984 by George Orwell. This one I read when I was, I think, a smidge too young. I would like to do a reread of it someday. And also Jude the Obscure by Thomas Hardy. I love these editions. What are they called? The Penguin English Library. We've got good old Thomas Hardy in the front there. I would love to get more of these, but I'm holding myself back until I've read more of my classics. Then I have, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 older paperbacks, just the kind of old Penguins books. So I have Where Angels Fear to Tread by E.M. Forster. This one came with a beautiful piece of writing from someone who had used to own the book and was writing in it. I might come back and talk about my oldest books in another video, so I won't linger for too long on them. Then I have By the Pricking of My Thumbs by Agatha Christie. This one says first time in paperback on the front. Then I have Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. Jamaica Inn by Daphne du Maurier. I haven't read this one yet, but I'd really like to. And finally The Ladybird by D.H. Lawrence. Also haven't read this one yet. Also would really like to, as with most of my classic books. Then I have a couple paperbacks by Charlotte Bronte. So first I have Jane Eyre. I have a couple copies of Jane Eyre that you'll see throughout this, but the other copies are kind of in like accumulated series. And then I have, this is a newer one, Shirley by Charlotte Bronte as well. This is her only one I own that I haven't read yet. Then we have my kind of miscellaneous Jane Austen. So first, I think you guys have seen this one before. I have Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. This is a Penguin popular classic. So it's a little bit more sturdy. I haven't read this one yet. Then in the Orange Penguin books, I have Persuasion by Jane Austen. This one I have read, and I do have another copy as well. Then I have Emma in the cloth-bound Penguin Classics. This is my only cloth-bound Penguin Classics. It used to be my mum's. And then finally, I have a kind of bind-up of the complete novels of Jane Austen. This one used to be my mum's as well, and she kind of passed it on down to me. So in this one, we have Sense and Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park, Emma, Northanger Abbey, Persuasion, and Lady Susan. So all of my Jane Austen needs are fulfilled in this book. Okay, and then speaking of Jane Austen, so you would have seen me, I think I mentioned this book in one of my last videos. These are kind of my favorite editions at the moment. So the Black Penguin Classics, I just really like the way they feel when you write them, and I found that the text is usually quite a good size. They feel when you read them, not when you write them. I wish. I only have 4 of these, but I am constantly on the lookout for them in the thrift stores. So first I have, as recently shown, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I freaking love the cover on this one. That's one of my favorite covers. This one I think you guys have also seen, Ivan Turgenev's Sketches from a Hunter's Album. I think this was in a haul at the end of last year. Then I have Dracula by Bram Stoker. And finally I have James Joyce's A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. I haven't read those last 3 yet. There are a lot of classics in this pile that I haven't actually gotten to yet because the prices are just so killer, you know? Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll move on to my biggest edition collection. So the most books that I have, and maybe it's because they're so easy to spot in the thrift stores because they stand out so much, are the vintage Red Spine books. I have so many of them, so I'm gonna zoom through them. Some of these you guys have already seen, I think most of them probably, but here they are all in one place. So first I have Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy, very floppy this one. Then I have The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. This one I read last year. Then I have another Russian one. I have Dr. Zhivago. Oh, I'm saying that wrong. Someone told me how to say it when I talked about this book and I've completely forgotten. I'm sorry. That's just dropped into my brain and been lost. So it's Dr. Zhivago by Pasternak. Boris Leonidovich Pasternak. Then we have The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. This was actually the first Red Spine I owned. I've had it since I was like 15. Then this one is quite high up on my TBR, Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. My sister recently read this and really enjoyed it. Then I have a couple Hemingways. So I have A Movable Feast and I have For Whom the Bell Tolls, both of which I have heard very good things about. And then finally in the Red Spine Vintage Classics, I have Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, which is kind of like the OG dystopian, and I'm very excited to read it. And also Frederick the Great by Nancy Mitford, which I am also excited to read because I am a big history junkie. Okay, and then I have a couple miscellaneous kind of Russian books, and I think you've seen these ones in recent videos. So I have The Idiot by Fyodor Dostoevsky, and I also have War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. This is a Wordsworth Classic edition, which some of you in my biggest TBR video my biggest books on my TBR video said that there are other editions of this that are a little bit easier to read. So I'm gonna look into that because I want to have a good experience while I'm reading this. But the other Wordsworth classic that I have is Heart of Darkness and Other Stories by Joseph Conrad. Haven't gotten to this one yet, would really like to because I feel like it'll be quite a quick read. The themes in it interest me. I've heard it referenced a lot in other books. We are powering through. We're actually getting through this quicker than I thought. If there are any books that you have seen so far that you are ultra interested in, any editions that you really like, let me know. If there are any that you've seen that you swear by, that you think are really, really good and I should put high up on my TBR, also let me know, because as you can see, I do have a lot of options. A lot of these I have read. A lot of these I read a long time ago and I wouldn't mind doing a reread, so let me know. Okay, so now we move into miscellaneous hardbacks. So these ones aren't part of any particular editions like most of my other hardbacks, so I thought I would kind of do them all together. So first we have this really, really old, it's been eaten up by our cockatiel that we used to have. It's kind of a bind up of Bronte stories. It used to be a Penguin Classics Deluxe edition, so my Bronte sisters' needs are being met as well. No matter what I want to read, I'm lucky enough that I will probably be able to find it on my shelf. So in here we have Jane Eyre, Wuthering Heights, Agnes Grey, and The Professor. Then I thrifted this, which I was super happy about. This is F. Scott Fitzgerald's This Side of Paradise. I have seen people with these copies on BookTube. It's kind of hard to see. I've seen these floating around a lot and I thought they were so beautiful, and I saw one in a thrift store and I was just so excited, and it's in such good condition. So that's a Penguin one, that one. I don't know what these specific editions are called. I think all of F. Scott Fitzgerald's works got kind of a nice shiny redo. Then you guys saw this in my biggest books on my TBR video again. A lot of them were classics. Les Mis by Victor Hugo. If you want, I love seeing what's underneath. This is just a plain blue book. And then finally, I have a bind up of E.M. Forster books. So this one has Where Angels Fear to Tread, which I also had in the older, smaller paperback books. A Room with a View, Howard's End, and a Passage to India. And this one is by Octopus Books. I think you guys have seen this one before, but this is what it looks like under the dust jacket. It's pretty simple. And then you guys have heard me mention these ones before. I actually ended up splitting them with my sister because I used to have 6 and it just was unreasonable to have 6 of these books. So I ended up splitting, and we just said if we ever want to read something that the other has, we'll just do that. So these are Agatha Christie crime collections. So they each have 3 Agatha Christie stories in them. They are what I have. They're very kind of 60s looking. This is what they look like under the cover. They're actually quite beautiful under the cover. They feel really buttery. So it says AC Crime Collection, and then we have what stories are in each on the spine. This one here has Ordeal by Innocence, 1, 2, Buckle My Shoe, and Adventure of the Christmas Pudding. If you know where to start with Agatha Christie based on the books that I've shown you today, please let me know, because I feel like she has such a big, like, she's one of the most sold authors in the world and I have no idea where to start with her. This one has Partners in Crime, At Bertram's Hotel, and The Hound of Death. And then the final one has Halloween Party, Passenger to Frankfurt, and 13 Problems. I like the pictures that they have on the front too. Okay, so now we are moving into my fancy books. So I do want to make a video eventually, hopefully before I move, with my most beautiful books, because I have so many beautiful books. Most of them are about to be shown to you, but again, I'm only going to do a quick, this is what I have, because this video is more of a, you know, have a look at what's on my shelf with me as opposed to really going into depth about them. So I have 2 of these. These are collector's editions. Oh, one day I would love to have the set of these because they are all so pretty, like the colors and things like that, and they're all in books that I quite enjoy, although I'm not one for having multiple copies of the same book. So I would like to get the Sense and Sensibility edition of these ones because I don't have a separate copy of that one yet, although it is in the binder. Anyway, so in these editions I have Persuasion by Jane Austen and Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. They are so beautiful. Oh, it's just started to rain. I'm going to continue. It's a little bit of background ambience, you know, hopefully it's not too loud. Okay, so then I have my kind of, it's not a hardback, but it's not a paperback either. It's these kind of bendy ones. So I don't know what these ones are called with the circular words around them. Oh, look at the inside cover. Beautiful. Word cloud classic. So I only have one word cloud classic, and that is Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. This one is from my lovely fiance. And then I do have 3 other kind of softer cover books, but they are of different editions. These ones are the Barnes & Noble editions, but not the hardback ones, the floppy ones. So I have The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Fun fact, when I started this channel, the video wasn't up anymore because I took it down. But this was the very first book that I ever talked about on my camera. Then I have Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. This is a favorite, and it is also a beautiful book. When I read it so vigorously that the color is kind of worn off the spine a little bit because of how I was holding it. Love this book. And finally, the only one I haven't read in these editions is The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. We have a couple other kind of miscellaneous hardbacks here, but they're part of my beautiful hardbacks, so I put them in a separate pile. This second one, I would technically group it with children's literature, but I have legitimately 3 copies of this book, so I figured even if I talk about it in this video, I'm still gonna have other things to talk about in the one video that I would like to do about children's literature. That is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. This copy I actually won in school in 2013, so it's been with me a while, and it's so beautiful. So beautiful. This is also one of my favorite books. It has the illustrations inside. It smells, you know, the kind of plasticky pages, they just smell so good. Just gorgeous illustrations. The rain is getting heavier. I'm gonna keep going. I like rain and I like talking, so really hope that's not getting in anyone's way for their listening experience. Doesn't help that I'm in a garage at the moment. And then the other miscellaneous pretty hardback is one that my sister got for my birthday last year. You saw it in the birthday haul, and that is The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Absolutely gorgeous pattern on the front. Very soft pages as well, and the gold edge. I think there's illustrations too. Gorgeous book. I'll get more into that if I do a beautiful books video. Okay, and then the final pile that I have, oh my gosh, it's actually really heavy because they're all hardbacks. I was gonna lift it up to show you. Oh my gosh, this is it. So these are all of matching editions, not all of them the same edition, but they all kind of go together. So the first couple you have seen recently. The first one is The Lady of the Camillas by Alexander Dumas. What are these called? I don't know. Heron books. For a while I was seeing them everywhere in Australian thrift stores, and now I see them nowhere. This one has been with me for a long time, and I finally read it at the end of last year. And then this one you also saw. This was the first book that I read this year, and it was also the first 5-star that I gave this year, and that is Villette by Charlotte Bronte. The title has worn off the spine because the book is so old, but the book is absolutely gorgeous, and I enjoyed reading this so much. Okay, I had to pause for a moment there because the rain got absolutely crazy. It might have been a little bit crazy already. I haven't been able to watch back what I've recorded yet, so if we had a mild angle change, that's why. So I was saying that I have 3 Chiltern classics. The first 2 of these I got in a really good deal. It was like they were going 2 for $30 at QBD Books, which for those of you who aren't Australian, I'm not sure if it's outside Australia. It's an Australian like bookstore. It's kind of like the rival to Dymocks. It was like 2 for $30, but I had a bunch of points on my loyalty club card, so I got both of these beautiful books for $19. Maybe it was 3. I don't remember whether I got the third one separately. Anyway, so the first one is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This one I read last year. Then I got Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. I think that means that the only Jane Austen book I don't have separately, I do have it in a bind up, is Sense and Sensibility, which I'm very lucky. And then finally I have Far From the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. This one is a chunky one. It feels very sturdy to read. Most of the children classics I found feel very sturdy to read, and it has a very satisfying crunch when you pull the pages apart because it's got the gold thing on the edge. The next 3, I don't know what these are called. Classic Adventures. The Classic Adventures editions I found in the thrift store. They had this huge box and they had literally 20 of these in there, and they were going for like $2 each, and I have really had to restrain myself. Yeah, it's called the Classic Adventures series, so I just got 3. These are recent purchases of classics that I really would like to read but hadn't had the chance to find yet. They're quite cute. So the first one is Silas Marner by George Eliot. They got the little pictures kind of in the front there. Then I got The Call of the Wild by Jack London. This one I got especially because I'd been hearing just like The Call of the Wild come up a lot in life. So I saw it in that bin and I was like, oh, it's time. It's time. And then finally I got Heidi by Johanna Spyri. I would like to do a video about kind of cottagecore books because I love that vibe of things. I love to feel like I'm away from everything with all the flowers and baking bread in a cottage on a mountain in the springtime. And that is, I've heard, encapsulated in this book, so I'm saving that for maybe that kind of video. Oh, one other miscellaneous kind of hardback book, you have seen this one before in a couple videos, is The Arabian Nights, translated by Sir Richard F. Burton. This one is a Barnes & Noble classic hardback version. I do have one other edition of these. I have Robin Hood, but that one I am saving for the children's literature video. And then finally I have all thrifted actually. One was a gift from a sister, I think. I have 3 Reader's Digest hardbacks, which are so beautiful. I love them very much. The first one was a gift from my sister and it's high up on my TBR at the moment because she's recently read some Charles Dickens and really liked it. Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. Yeah, I really like the Reader's Digest versions of books. They just feel very sturdy and they have the real nice details in there. The second one is Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. I read these when I was like 10, really liked them. I remember being really annoyed by Anne when I was a kid, but now as I've gotten older. And then finally, the last classics book that I have to show you in the Reader's Digest edition is Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. How beautiful is that? That's such a gorgeous front cover. And I love that they come, a lot of them, not all of them if you're thrifting, they might be lost, but they come with like a little news pamphlet about the book and like the circumstances in which it was written and the author. Adds to the experience, and it's so much more, having this in the book is so much better than a lengthy kind of academic introduction in my humble opinion. And this one also has a beautiful opening as well. My mum recently read this book and she said it was absolutely miserable, so I look forward to getting into that as well. Okay, that's it. Those are all of my classics bar the children's literature. I feel like I have so much to say about every single book that I've just shown you, and I'm really restraining myself for the sake of not creating an hour-long video. I do have a lot of books that I would consider modern classics. Thinking about it, there are maybe a couple in here that would have counted more towards modern classics. I'm thinking mainly The Outsiders would have been more of a modern classic. I probably should have put that in a different video. So maybe I can make a video about more modern classics. I probably should have prefaced at the beginning. A classic book, I don't know the official jargon for what makes a book a classic book, but for me, it's just the vibe. Professional and scientifically proven method of determining what is a classic or not is just, what's the vibe? You know, like if it's a book that I hear about a lot, if it's a book that is kind of from older times, before the 1980s, maybe, if I had to put a time on it. Just a book that is kind of influenced current literature or society, you know, like the books where we kind of get cliches from or we get pop culture references from and they're so old that we don't even know that they came from those books. So that is kind of what I would label a classic in my head, but I know that that definition is debated a little bit. So there you go. Thank you very much for sticking around and just allowing me to drag all my books off my shelf. Again, if you would like to hear more about any of these books or if you have questions about any of the books that I showed today, then let me know. I'm more than happy to talk about it with you. Any excuse to ramble about books. Thank you for watching if you watched this far. Thank you for all the support in my last couple videos. Stick around if you want to see me ramble about books some more, and I hope you have a lovely day. Goodbye.